Let me ask you something honest, something that most people never stop long enough to think about. Why do some people seem to attract wealth, happiness, and success almost effortlessly? Meanwhile, others spend their entire lives chasing it, working harder and harder, and still coming up empty. The answer isn't luck. It isn't connections. It isn't even talent. The answer is something far more personal, far more powerful. And it starts with a single truth that changed everything for me. You will never outgrow your income until you outgrow yourself. Read that again. Your income, your relationships, your lifestyle, none of it will grow beyond the person you currently are. Not permanently, not in a lasting way. You might get a lucky break. You might stumble into a windfall. But if you haven't grown into the version of yourself who can hold that level of success, it will slip right through your fingers. There is an old saying that goes like this: if you divided all the money in the world equally among every person, within a few years it would all flow back into the same hands. Why? Because wealth isn't a destination. It's a reflection. It reflects who you are, how you think, and what you do every single day when nobody is watching. That's the brutal truth, and it's also the most liberating truth you'll ever hear. Because if success is a reflection of who you are, then the moment you start changing who you are, everything else begins to change with it. You are not stuck. You are not behind. You are simply at the beginning of your own transformation. So here's the first thing you need to understand, and I want you to sit with this. Success is not something you chase. It's something you attract. The moment you stop running after success and start working on yourself, really working, deeply, consistently, without shortcuts, success starts moving toward you. That shift in mindset alone is worth more than any strategy, any hack, any shortcut the internet tries to sell you. Now, the first pillar of that transformation is simple but massively underestimated. You have to find out how things actually work. Not how you assume they work. Not what your uncle told you at a family dinner. How they actually work. Most people walk through life guessing, hoping, crossing their fingers, and wishing things would get better. But nothing changes by accident. Everything in your life right now, your income, your habits, your relationships, is the result of ideas that have taken root inside your mind. And here's the profound implication of that. If you want different results, you need different ideas, not motivation, not willpower alone. New ideas, better ideas, bigger ideas. Think about it this way. If someone told you there was a map that could take you from where you are right now to exactly where you want to be, would you bother to read it? Of course you would. That map exists. It's called a book. And yet most people who say they want more, who dream of better, who complain about their current situation, most people haven't read a serious book in months, maybe years. Every great mind that has ever lived has left behind their secrets in the written word. Entrepreneurs who built empires from nothing. Leaders who transformed entire industries. Thinkers who rewired the way we see the world. They wrote it all down. And you can access all of it for the price of a paperback. That is extraordinary. That is one of the greatest gifts of modern civilization. And yet it goes largely ignored. Here's a commitment that costs you almost nothing but can change everything. 30 minutes a day. That's it. Not half the night. Not a library's worth of books every week. Just 30 minutes a day of intentional reading. Something positive. Something that challenges you. Something instructional. Something that opens a new door in your mind. Do that consistently for 1 year, and you will not recognize the person looking back at you in the mirror. Because ideas compound. One idea leads to another. One connection in your mind sparks a chain reaction. And suddenly, on some quiet, ordinary morning, something clicks, and your whole world shifts. But reading is only one way to find out how things work. The second is listening, and I mean really listening, not waiting for your turn to speak. Get yourself around people who are doing what you want to do. Successful people. People who have already solved the problems you're currently struggling with. And when you're with them, listen. Listen to what they say. Listen to how they say it. Pay attention to the beliefs underneath the words, the mindset behind the choices. the attitude that shows up even in casual conversation. Now here's a piece of advice that sounds almost too simple to be true, but I promise you it's one of the most powerful things I've ever heard. If you're not where you want to be financially, find someone who is, and take them to dinner. Spend real money on it. Ask real questions. And then be quiet and absorb. 1 2-hour conversation with the right person can do more for your life than years of aimless effort. The ideas they casually drop into conversation reveal the frameworks they use, the way they think, and the decisions they make without even blinking. Those things could multiply your income, your clarity, and your confidence in ways you cannot yet imagine. The reason most people never do this is pride, or fear, or the wrong kind of frugality. They think, why would I spend money feeding someone who has more than I do? But that thinking is exactly the thinking that keeps them exactly where they are. Invest in exposure to excellence. The return is priceless. And then there's a third way to learn how things work. And it's perhaps the most available and most overlooked of all: observation. Start paying close attention to the people around you who are succeeding. Watch everything. How they carry themselves, how they speak under pressure, how they handle disappointment, how they respond to opportunity, how they treat people who can do nothing for them. Success is not random. It leaves clues everywhere. And if you train yourself to truly observe, you will start picking up those clues like gold nuggets scattered across the sidewalk. There are 2 entirely different ways to experience the world. One is with your eyes. The other is with your mind. Your eyes show you what's on the surface. Your mind shows you what things mean. Most people only use their eyes. They see the expensive car, but not the decade of sacrifice behind it. They see the confident speaker, but not the thousands of hours of preparation. They see the result, but miss the entire journey. Start using both, eyes and mind together. That's where real insight is born. And insight, true insight, is what changes a life. Now, finding out how things work is the foundation. But knowledge alone will never change your life. I need to say that clearly because this is where so many people get stuck. They read books and attend seminars and consume content and accumulate knowledge, and nothing changes. Why? Because they've confused learning with action. Learning without action is just entertainment. And entertaining yourself with information you never apply is one of the most sophisticated ways to waste your potential. The second pillar is this: you have to go to work. Not just work, real work. Intentional work. Work on yourself with the same seriousness that you bring to your job, your responsibilities, your obligations. In fact, I'll challenge you even further. Work harder on yourself than you do on your job. Because your job gives you income, but working on yourself builds the capacity for a completely different level of life. Start with self-discipline. And here's what most people misunderstand about discipline. They think it's about grand gestures and massive life overhauls. It's not. Discipline is built in the small moments. The morning you choose to wake up on time when every part of you wants to stay in bed. The evening you choose to read for 30 minutes instead of scrolling. The meal you choose carefully. The workout you show up for even when you're tired. These small decisions are not small at all. They are the building blocks of a stronger, more capable version of you. Every small discipline you honor is a vote for the person you're becoming. And every small discipline you ignore is a vote for staying exactly the same. The other thing nobody talks about enough is this: motivation cannot be outsourced. You cannot afford to build your drive on someone else's energy. If you need a specific person, a specific song, a specific environment to feel motivated, what happens when that person isn't there? What happens when you're in a difficult season and the inspiration isn't showing up? You have to develop the ability to move yourself forward from the inside. That is self-motivation in the truest sense. And it's a skill. Like any skill, it's built through practice. Through deciding, repeatedly, to move even when you don't feel like it. Through choosing action over comfort until action becomes your default mode. Let your learning lead to action, not to more thinking, not to more planning, not to more waiting for the perfect moment. The perfect moment is a myth. Take what you know right now and do something with it. Start imperfectly. Start small. Start today. Because the gap between where you are and where you want to be is not crossed by knowledge alone. It's crossed by movement. And here is the final, critical warning. The third pillar. I want you to hear this clearly because it's the trap that swallows so many people who are almost there. Do not try to beat the system. Learn how it works. Respect how it works. And then do the work required to make it work for you. Don't look for shortcuts. Don't look for angles. Don't look for the clever trick that lets you skip the hard parts. Because every shortcut has a cost, and usually, that cost is paid later, in full, with interest. The people who try to slice corners, cut edges, find the easy way, they always end up rebuilding from scratch, again and again. Because a life built on shortcuts has no foundation, but a life built on integrity, on genuine effort, on doing things right even when it's harder and slower, that life compounds. That life builds something real, something that lasts. So here's where I leave you. Not with a motivational burst that fades by tomorrow morning, but with a genuine challenge. Look at the last 5 years of your life. Really look. Now understand this. The next 5 years will look almost exactly the same, unless you make a deliberate, committed decision to change something starting tomorrow. Not next month. Not after the new year. Tomorrow. You don't need a massive overhaul to begin. You need one decision, one new discipline, one book opened, one mentor sought out, one moment where you choose growth over comfort. That single choice, made consistently, will compound into something you cannot yet see from where you're standing. The life you want is not beyond your reach. It is not reserved for a lucky few. It is waiting, patiently, on the other side of the person you're still becoming. The gifts are already inside you. Remarkable, powerful, underutilized gifts. The only question that matters now is, what are you going to do tomorrow to start bringing them out?